Just for starters, when you said teaspoons, I thought you were gonna say like you only had spoons for gossip, and then I thought you were gonna give us some gossip. But teaspoons is a good analogy. Yeah, I feel you. When I was staying at Lindsay's, she had teaspoons with holes in them. I guess, well, they were actually in the shape of skulls. I was going to say Dracula, but it was skulls. And so I guess that's when you have a tea bag in and it helps strain it, and also aesthetics, obviously. Everything in Lindsay's house is very gorgeous and comical and brilliant. But yeah, I kind of feel like the last few months it's been those teaspoons with the holes in. It can't hold anything.
Once a week, somebody comes and cleans my room, and all of my meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, are provided for me. And I'm realizing that this is like kind of a thing that like a lot of kind of fancy residencies are based off of, that like cleaning is done and cooking is done. And yeah, it's wild. It's like cooking and cleaning are the main things that are provided at a residency, which means that those are the main things in our daily life that are somehow considered to be barriers to art making, barriers to productivity, barriers to creativity, or something like that. And I'm really like grappling with that. Like, it feels so wild that care work is so undervalued, and yet it's the thing that allows for us to do just about anything. And it's very much the thing that, is the foundation and the support of creative work, creative labor. So I'm in this weird relationship of care here, where it's being done by people that aren't me, when normally I would be doing it, or my partner would be doing it, or, my mom would be doing it. I don't know, maybe I don't have anything interesting to say about that, except that it's just like struck me, and also maybe because of my own like class background, it like makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I'm also just like, anyway, I'm just amazed that this thing that's like the essential relationship of life is like, it's just so critical and so undermined, Like, I can't believe it, that like novelists can write novels if somebody would just make their food.
I wonder how you all feel around how your creative energy is impacted by how many spoons you have, because sometimes I can be like the most exhausted, that really like quite often what I describe as like scooped out tired, where I'm just like, I'm too tired to shut my eyes, that kind of really, really deep down, unpleasant tired. And then I can have like a real like over the like, I can have so much creative energy, and that can be really unpleasant because I can't exert it. But then there's other kinds of tired where I can be almost like a bit deliriously tired. And I feel like sometimes when I'm quite unwell, I can have really fizzy creative energy that feels really generative and like inspiring, and I can be like really inspired by stuff. I wonder how like limited spoons, how spoons affect your creative energy. I'd be really interested to know. Very much caveating that with like being ill is not great for making art in that way. In terms of like being ill is just like really cool and fun for like making art, I do think about sometimes like fucking hell, like I would be able to do so much more if I wasn't really ill all the time. Like I'd just be able to just do so much more and make so much more, and it's a really tough one, isn't it? Because I think like it's almost like I only see that when I zoom out. I think when I zoom in, and again that kind of sensation of like submitting to my limits and finding that freedom within that, like I don't feel limited by my spoons in the same kind of way, because I'm like working within, I really enjoy playing with scale like that, I was talking about bigness and like getting to exist in a big space, because I feel like my day-to-day space is just like the width of my arm span. Like that's my scale. My scale is just my body, and like getting to kind of exist beyond my body is just like, oh, that's lovely. That's a really, really nice feeling, if that makes sense.
I know you won't expect an apology or want an apology, but I'm sorry I haven't got back to you earlier, because it sounds like you could have done with, I don't know, it sounds like you've been feeling a little lonely, and I'm sorry that I wasn't, didn't respond when you were feeling that way, but I hope at least just sharing helped a bit. We used to ask each other to go to the toilet for us, like if one of us was up and the other one needed the toilet, we'd say, can you go to the toilet for me? And we'd like agree to it, and usually it helped. Obviously completely psychosomatic, but yeah, just the idea of the other person going to the toilet for you seemed to take the edge off. I wish you could do that with spoons. Yeah, no, that is definitely a thing for me as well, and it has been for the last week. But I'm just so, by contrast, so like relieved to be in a position where I don't have to be panicking about everything I'm behind on all the time for the first time in like maybe 9 months or something. That I'm just kind of trying to focus on like my potential ability once I'm feeling a bit better soon to be able to go into that reverie. Yeah, I don't know, the like capacity denial thing, it's complicated, isn't it? Because like, yeah, it can make you more sick, and like, you can end up stuck in these ruts where you overdo it and you keep making yourself sick. But then again, if you kind of stick to whatever you can handle at any given moment and always anticipating the next crash, then do you end up doing nothing? And like maybe nothing is fine, but maybe there are some times where you just want to do stuff and you have to think like, fuck tomorrow.
Oh, how do able people do it? Like, how do they go to 9-to-5 jobs and then go out in the evening and then go out all weekend and look after themselves and cook and clean? I'm just like, it is mind-boggling to me how much people can fit into their lives and not. I mean, I know that people aren't unscathed by that, and like maybe people ignore their limits and boundaries, but yeah, I just am amazed by that. And so there was this moment on Saturday where I was thinking, my friend's having, well, not my friend actually, somebody that I have a bit of a crush on who I haven't met yet, is having drinks in the evening for his birthday, and it was in the same area I was in, and I was like, it was probably about 3:30, and I was thinking, how nice would it be if I could just stay out in the sun and then go to the pub? It's frustrating that I can't do that, but I was like, no, I'm so flary from sitting with Maggie for 3 hours in a cafe that was a bit loud. I'm like having slight autistic shutdown, like verging on meltdown, and I really do just need to go home and rest, and I've created these boundaries for a reason, and I need to do it. So I came home, I walked a bit to decompress, then I came home and I rested, and then rested until I went the next day. And I'd been having like low energy every day, and then on Saturday night, my mum cooked me dinner, which was so helpful, and like made sure I actually ate some veg because I've just been eating takeouts constantly. And I woke up on Sunday with energy, and then I had this like lovely but brief lunch with my friend that was local to us in Southwest, so like actually, you know, for once didn't have to leave like the sticks of London where I'm currently living. And I just actually felt energized by it. And I've crashed since, like I was crashing yesterday and I'm crashing today and I'm in bed and I've been doing bits of work. But it was just like this perfect synergy of, I had some spoons and I actually used them on things that I really enjoyed. And I got to see people that I really wanted to see. Like the people I most wanted to see actually answered me and were available, even though it was kind of sporadic and short notice. So yeah, I don't know. I felt like I had a good use of spoons this weekend, which was really nice.
Yeah, I've just been out here with a bunch of strangers, trying to figure out how to be disabled, and like not really wanting to disclose, but also just wanting to do the things I need to do. And I don't know, it's challenging. It's still challenging after all these years to just be myself, right? Like that's fundamentally what we're talking about, is like, do we have the capacity to just be ourselves and to be honest and transparent with other people around that? Or are we like pushing ourselves beyond ourselves and then like being in pain or hurting ourselves or being overwhelmed, or I don't know. But yeah, it's something I struggle with too, but it's something that I really want to be good at. And sometimes I am really good at it, you know? And those moments feel really important. And sometimes it's important to just do that, even if you're not really feeling it, you know, but to just kind of fake it. And I do think it's disability as a political framework that like helps me get through that. So that instead of me being like, oh, my needs are too much and like nobody here gets it or blah, 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 that I just like stake my claim and allow people to fall in line. I wanted to share something on like just being an artist and feeling like my practice has grown and shifted and changed and transformed in ways as my life has, and like adapted, and that my own experiences of chronic illness and disability have like, yeah, just radically transformed the way I relate to art and art production. And that has ultimately been a really beautiful thing for me. And the more that I am supported as an artist, which, you know, I feel really lucky and grateful that I've been, you know, somewhat supported as an artist, been able to make my work, is that there is a way in which you're kind of squeezed. And I think this is for any artist at any level of, you know, I don't know, yeah, at any stage in their practice or any stage in their career, that even when like, you know, the frame of the work is around this kind of difference of capacity, that that feels kind of like a surface kind of reading of the work, and there's no understanding that these are not just ideas that we throw around, but they're like lived, like material conditions of our lives. And I've been thinking about that in around how I feel like there's a kind of constant demand for growth and expansion. And I find myself kind of overwhelmed in the face of this demand for growth and expansion as an artist, when I feel like I want to move sideways and deeper and not up. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but if we frame it in spoons, I mean, it's literally just like people just want you to do more and bigger and better, and me not being able to do more and bigger, I think is read, like everything else, as a kind of implicit failure in some way. And I'm not really sure what to do about that, except that there isn't really an alternative to that except to just do what I need to do and make the work in the way that I need to make it. But I'm perceiving feelings of disappointment when I cannot do more than what I'm already doing. But I don't know. In some ways, I hope we might be able to come up with maybe a different framework or something.
Spending so much time on admin, yes, that's the story of my life. I'm really trying to never get away from that because it's been so long since I've even made any fucking work. And I really want to make art.
And maybe my frustration now is that to receive care and consideration, to create the working dynamics that feel good and possible to me, which itself is a privilege, right? So many disabled and chronically ill people don't get to make decisions around these things. They either must work or they cannot work, right? There's no world in which we get to set the parameters of our own labor, and the few of us that are able to, do it under great duress. So, sorry, this is just me saying I don't know over and over again, but I don't know what the answer is. The immediate thing that comes to mind is just more transparency around my life, but I don't necessarily know if that feels right. I don't know if other people are entitled to know why I can't, or why I can or can't do something. So I think that's why I find myself focused less on explaining myself and more on trying to change the kind of, the structural, the infrastructures in which we work, and then also the cultural parameters that make it so people have kind of universal expectations of everyone.
So I've been torn on whether to create a spoons group while I'm out of spoons, and realizing that it's maybe helpful to articulate being out of spoons, but I am also so far out of spoons that I'm can't really, I don't know, I'm just running so far on empty. I'm in Margate still. Came down for Lizzie's retrospective, which was beautiful and such a beautiful use of spoons, but it's 4 or 5 days of just constant socializing, and I seem to be crashing for 2-3 weeks at the moment, then getting out of bed and doing way too much, using all the spoons and then having none left. So I'm currently wondering how I'm gonna get home and how I'm gonna get on the train. I need to get better at replenishing and not just spending them all.
But I do think it's important to note that it's a framework that comes out of thinking about invisible disabilities, or what people call invisible disabilities. I always find that phrasing kind of funny and bizarre because I always joke that, my disability is invisible because you never see me because I'm not out. And that's the nature of my disability. But I do think it's important, just to note that it comes from a discourse pertaining to people who may appear superficially to be non-disabled. I always feel it's really important to say that, because I think other people who are disabled, those things are not so invisible to. So maybe just in a kind of normative world, then those things are kind of glossed over and people appear to be not disabled. But anyway, that it comes from conversations and dialogue coming from people with chronic illnesses who are perceived to have invisible disabilities, and that being able to talk about one's energy, one's time, one's capacity, one's labor in terms of spoons was a way to create a metaphor or to create an analogy that would explain or create would somehow assist in combating some of the specific forms of ableism we experience as people with so-called invisible disabilities, which I think has to do with chronically being perceived as unreliable, lazy, incompetent, all those things. So that's one thing I wanted to say.
Because of where I live, it's traveling is part of the job. It's hard to kind of understand it now in pandemic, because pre-pandemic I would travel more. Last year was the first year I did some traveling in pandemic, and I'm going to do some more this year. But I had a really strong sensation of when you were talking about being in the hotel in Dublin and just trying to navigate the demands of the trip versus your capacity and just needing to get home safely,
Caro, I don't know if you remember this, it was years ago and it was a really small thing, but at the time it was really helpful for me. But I think I posted on Instagram, this is how long ago it is, you were still on Instagram, a picture of a blue sky out of my window, and I was I don't know if it's nice or horrible for there to be a blue sky outside when you're in bed and you can't go out into it. And I think you commented, it's both. And that was it, but it just was yeah, it is. It sounds like such a simple thing, but of course I don't have to make a decision about whether it's good or bad, and the complexity of those things are all rolled into one, and that's just how it is. It is nice to look at a blue sky from out your window, but it's also frustrating to not be able to be out in it, and that's just how it is.
Say you have spoons, what is your absolute favourite way to use them? So I'm wondering that for both of you. This weekend I actually got my spoons right for I don't know, it felt like the first time ever, but definitely in a long, long time. And I've been crashing a lot with moving and everything, and just feeling so lethargic all the time. And that lethargy where it's different to your maybe usual lethargy, and you're thinking oh no, is there something else up with my body? What is going on here? Is this a new symptom? Have I got worse? And then I realized I'd been moving and not acknowledging how much I'd been doing, and it was probably just that.
I don't use it. I understand the analogy. I also know that there's a really specific history to spoon theory, which is that this chronically ill person, writer, I forget her name, who had lupus, basically was sitting in a diner with a friend and sort of created an analogy based on the spoons that were on the table in this restaurant, and sort of saying, I start out with 12 every day, and I have to use 4 in the morning to shower, and then 3 to eat, and then 2 to put on my clothes, and then after that there's just very little left to do things that maybe non-disabled people would do, I don't know, work an 8-hour job.
Parallel crashing has a pain to it. Yeah, I know what you mean. There's that sense of being less alone when someone else feels similarly or the same but also not wanting to wish that on someone else.